One of the biggest misleading quotes I heard growing up, and I'm sure you guys have heard it too, is that you need to have money to make money. Now, this isn't true. Wealth can be used as a tool to increase your wealth, and money is a result, of course, but you don't need to have money to make money. You can start making money with $0 in your bank account. I'm going to run through a bit of my story as I realized that and how it led me to where I am now. So, it's not that you need money to make money, it's you need time to make money, and time is your commodity here. And the skills you learn with how effectively you use that time determines how much time you need to trade in for money. Eventually, once you have enough money, that money can be considered wealth, and wealth can be used to generate more wealth. But starting out, you need to trade in time. So what do you do with your time? The concept I want to run through today is something we all know, but we just don't talk about enough: the wasted time. So how many hours a week do you spend watching movies and TV shows? How many times a week do you mindlessly scroll TikTok and other social media? And what about video games? The average person spends about 3 hours per day watching TV and streaming services, and the average person per day spends an additional 2.5 hours on social media. Teenagers spend about 8 hours a day, but that's a whole different kettle of fish we won't get into. One day in the future, researchers will be like, how do we let it get that bad for them? But for the average adult, that's 5.5 hours per day spent in front of screens. Being an average, some spend more and some spend less. I'll let you figure out where you fit into that. But on the average, that's 165 hours per month the average person wastes. That is time that people could be trading in, but they're not, and they get $0 for it. It was a shock to my system a few years ago when I realized how much time I was wasting, and I was well above those averages too. It is easy to sit there and scroll social media. It is easy to sit there and just binge watch Game of Thrones for an entire weekend. In fact, these companies who provide these media services have entire teams dedicated to get you hooked and suck as much time as they can out of you. The shock was how much opportunity I was wasting though. So I started learning some new skills and I started trying some new things in that time to try and earn some extra money. I started the process of learning to trade that wasted time to try and improve my life. I started a t-shirt printing business when I bought a heat press and some boxes of blank t-shirts and some pre-made designs to press. I learned how to do it, but I wasn't very good at it. So I learned skills to digitalize it and pivot and try something different. So instead of pre-made designs, I signed up for Adobe Illustrator and started to learn graphic design and digital art. The concept being that I will make my own images to put on the t-shirts. But I sucked at graphic art, but in the process, I did learn to use Adobe Illustrator. And more importantly, I got exposure to the Adobe suite, which included Photoshop. Now, while I hadn't had success in business at this point, what I had done was far more important. I changed my habit and my brain's pattern of saying, go lay in bed and go watch movies and scroll social media. Now, I spend large parts of that time learning new skills and trying new things. I adapted these skills. I learned how to build an online store with Shopify. I learned how to integrate print-on-demand services to have a third party print my designs and then send them out for shipping to a customer. I learned Facebook and Instagram ads. I learned to run campaigns on Google AdSense. The previous skills created foundations to learn new skills. Instead of binging Game of Thrones, I was now spending time learning to create A/B tests for ads to sell t-shirts. Instead of just bombarding memes to friends in group chats, what I was now doing was I was learning to launch a Google store and an Etsy store. I was learning these skills. The time was being traded for skills that I could come back to in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 30 years' time if I needed. And this was across COVID, and I quickly learned that third-party print-on-demand companies making the clothing were under the pump, and they were getting weeks in delays from just so many orders coming in, the supply chain issues from getting stock in to keep up with fulfillment. And in addition, once all the shirts were being made, the postage times were blown out, sometimes taking a month to ship. So I made a decision to close down that side hustle because in that period of time, it changed from just being excited hearing a cha-ching on Shopify when a sale was made to instead just dealing with customer emails saying how much longer or how much longer is this shipping, and just chasing down shipping stuff for them, which wasn't what I really wanted to do. So I moved on. Now I can always come back to that in the future and try again, because now I've got the skills on my tool belt. The next side hustle I tried was I learned to make scented soy candles, and I was okay at it. The concept was if I wasn't good at making t-shirts myself, I needed to try something else where I could make it to control the timelines on production instead of waiting a long time over COVID for the third parties to make something. after making about 200 candles, and I learned to label them, I learned to take photos of them, I learned how to box them up. I was taking them into Photoshop with the photos and editing, everything like that. So I was learning skills around Photoshop, but I decided I didn't want to make candles as a side hustle. But I did learn how to make candles, and I learned, you know, the boxing, the labeling, using Australia Post with a business account. I learned how to edit photos in Photoshop. Also bought a GoPro for filming ads for the candle, but I never got around to using the GoPro. Also, at the point of closing it down, I was also moving from Brisbane back to the Sunshine Coast. I knew the place I was moving into wouldn't have the space to run a small candle making business. So for a few months, I had no side hustle. Now, I thought about the t-shirt thing again. It didn't feel like the right time. I thought about opening up a new drop shipping store, but just, yeah, wasn't feeling it. The market was saturated, but my mind did need stimulation. It didn't want to switch off. It didn't want to go back to movies. It didn't want to go back to just scrolling Instagram over and over again. It was still on and off from COVID lockdowns with masks on, and a lot of people were out of work. So I started reading books. So The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, Extreme Ownership, How US Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko Willink. Started digging through Tony Robbins' books. And for my full-time job, I started taking initiative on my own time to upskill. Not because the company asked me, but because I knew if I learned certain new skills, it would speed up how I did things, removing deadline stress, and I could automate things. It just took time so I could create a bit of breathing room back for myself. Not to take on more work for the 9-to-5 job, but just to make the 9-to-5 as easy as I could. That included jumping onto Udemy and taking a course in front-end web development, learning HTML, CSS, and most importantly, JavaScript as a programming language, learning new skills to improve the skills I had a foundation in while I was trying to find the next opportunity for the next side hustle to try. While those skills didn't lead to anything immediately from doing a Udemy course, over the next 2 years, they led to bonuses, pay rises, a promotion. Instead of reverting back to plugging in an Xbox, I took an online course for $50. One night I showed up to my friend Khan's place for a barbecue. For those who watched my channel in the early days, there used to be an outro on the screen of me yelling, "This is my turf!" and some guy yelling back, "Fuck off!" From a blue car, and the blue car was Khan. So I was at a barbecue, and after a few beers, he said, I tried food delivery driving for something called Doordash last night. It's like Uber Eats. And I was interested. I was like, oh, cool. I pay like $4 for delivery on Uber Eats, man. Did you get a couple? And he laughed. He said he got paid $20 per delivery. And I laughed and called bullshit. And he showed me. He did 3 long deliveries over 2 hours. I spent about a week researching and looking into it. I jumped onto YouTube and searched DoorDash driver. How much do DoorDash drivers get paid? How to do a DoorDash job? And I found all the names, you know, Nugs, Pedro, back then there was Megan Risman, Hannibal is Hungry, Your Driver Mike, DoorDash Diaries, Rideshare Professor, and it was all in miles and US dollars, all talking about tips. So I started adding Australia into the searches. You know, what is it like in my country? And there was fuck all. There was a channel killing it in Australia with Uber Eats, but it was all in Hindi, not in English. There was a few scattered videos in Australia where someone would have one video up and say, yeah, I earned $40 driving for Menulog. I earned $50 driving for Jimmy Brings. And overall, it was empty for Australia. And I got frustrated. I was like, well, what the fuck's it like in Australia? And then my brain went, hang on, you could probably make a video about it. Remember how you bought that GoPro for that candle thing? You could use that. So I signed up to DoorDash and filmed my very first shift as a ride-along video, which is the very first video on my channel. It was now learning the skill of how to use the DoorDash app, how to do delivery, how to drive to where a map says, to very close and accurate details, to new places I've never been before multiple times a day, while learning how to use a GoPro. The intent of the videos was never to make money on YouTube, but to just show what it was like in Australia DoorDash driving. In fact, on my first videos, I think I used to have the customer sign up link to sign up as a customer, and DoorDash would give me like $10 or $15 in credits for food. And I was like, sweet, if anyone clicks this, I can buy myself a Big Mac meal. But part of that filming process after the first day, I was like, I don't know how to use Premiere Pro. How do I edit a video? So my brain was like, ooh, no more sitting around playing RuneScape for you, buddy. You're now watching YouTube videos on how to use Premiere Pro. And to date, I've easily watched over 200 hours of tutorial videos on how to edit in Premiere Pro. So if you want to go back to my very first video, I filmed in like a 4:4 aspect ratio. I think it was in 720p because I didn't understand how to use Premiere Pro properly. I was importing the video after cutting it all into Adobe After Effects for the graphics, then then importing it back into Premiere Pro to finish it up. But using Premiere Pro and filming more videos and learning to use it, the GoPro, it led to better content, better editing. I had to develop speaking on camera, learn to do different shots, tried different things, watched videos and read articles to learn more. In my early videos, I was so uncomfortable looking at a camera lens and I could only get through one sentence at a time before panicking and just going, what was I saying? And it was just constantly J-cut. I learned to refine delivery driving because that's where I was making the money at the time, and I learned how it works, what to expect from weird scenarios, what days and hours to work from trial and error, and just trying new things while paying attention to the process. Photoshop from the candle era led me to the skills to edit thumbnails. My first couple of thumbnails are absolutely scuffed, guys, and I'm leaving them up on the channel, like right down on the early videos, just as a reminder for myself. But Photoshop led me to the skills to be able to start editing thumbnails in the first place for the videos. But it all started from breaking a trend and retraining my brain to resist all the movies and the social media and the video games. They aren't cut out completely. It's just reduced to the point that now my mind gets bored if I do it for too long because it knows it's wasting time. But I always wonder, you know, what would my life be like if I never had that realization of the time being wasted? I have a lot of friends who run their 9 to 5 and then they go and play Xbox and watch movies until they fall asleep. And then their weekends just filled with gaming and binging movies. When I do a quick social media check, I can see the people who share 20 or 30 videos and memes a day, which means they have wasted hours scrolling just to find the things they're going to share in the first place. I could be switched off in zombie mode like them, just like hundreds of millions of other people in Western society. But would life be better and more simple if I was just an NPC scrolling Netflix? Probably. But one day when I'm dying in my deathbed, I want to know that I did the best I could with the time I had. I want to know that I used my time creating opportunity and the best life possible instead of sitting like a fucking potato in front of a screen while I rotted away. Now, I know a lot of people watching this have already started to break that mold. You have a side hustle. You are focused on getting ahead, and I'm proud of you. And you are getting further and further ahead of the 95% of other people who do not have a second job, do not have a side hustle. They do not go out gig delivery driving or anything like that. And you have taken that step to go an extra mile and get that done to change your life. Otherwise, if it's your full-time gig delivery driving, you have created a role for yourself where you can extra mile when you need to. For those who haven't yet and need to break that TV mindset, my link to become a delivery driver is down below in the description. You will immediately have an opportunity to start making some extra money when you are delivery driving. You also aren't in front of a TV screen on the lounge just drooling away. This is an active step for you to retrain your brain from these mindless videos. You can do it now. Scroll down, click the fucking link, and thank me in 3 months down the track. Scroll down now, start a side hustle, go, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.